10 random magic cards rated, everybody. It is day number 154, Tuesday, the 10th of December, if my math is correct. That means we're officially in the double digits of Christmas month, so might be time to start panicking. Just calm down for now, though. You can panic later. Let's see what the first card of the day is. It's Forest. All basic lands get a 5. This Jonas Duro art I will give a 5.6 to. It's pretty good. Next, though, actual first card of the day is Selesnya Cluestone from Dragon's Maze. 3 mana for an artifact that taps for green or white, or you can pay a green or a white and tap it and sack it to draw a card. So you see how this is where we got clues from. From Dragon's Maze. You see these are clues, pay 2 mana, sack and draw a card. So that makes sense. Still though, 3 mana rocks aren't the best thing in the world, but as long as they have a decent upside, I can stomach them. So I'll give the card a 4.5. Mana rocks are better than they look, and when they become obsolete, being able to sack them to draw is pretty good upside. I like it. Goblin Grenade, though, one of the best cards in all of Fallen Empires. I do like this art. I do like this art right here. Is this always? No, because one's Ron Spencer. So, right? Yeah, Dan Frazier, Christopher Rush, Ron Spencer. Okay. I think a lot of people think the Spencer art's the best because people really like Spencer, but I've always been a fan of this Rush art here. I like the sort of, this is no shade. I mean it. I like the simplicity of like Schuler and Rush, you know, some of the older Magic artists, and Melissa Benson. But either way, Ron Spencer was always like, he's really busy, and I like that. I do, especially as a contrast to some of the other artists. But, you know, as far as Goblin Grenade goes, I really like this color palette. It pops. It's kind of cartoony. I'm a fan. It's almost like a Phil Folio piece, the face, but not quite. I'm done talking about the art now. A single red mana for a sorcery. Sacrifice a goblin as an additional cost to cast the spell, and then Goblin Grenade deals 5 damage to any target. That's wacko. That is yakko, wacko, and dot. It's time for Animaniacs, because this card is just completely off the rails, dude. A single red mana. This was Shrapnel Blast. Before Shrapnel Blast, you know, it's a lot more narrow. You can't just sack a random artifact laying around. It has to be a gobbo. But this was sort of the premier kill your opponent spell for goblins for, I don't know, 10 years, you know, literally a decade. This is the spell you like feared most out of goblins, you know, 4 lightning bolt, 4 goblin grenade, 4 fire blast. And the rest of their deck is goblins, you know, like 20, maybe 18 to 20 mountains. The rest of their deck is 1 to 2 mana goblins. A lot of those decks didn't even play Goblin King. They don't need to. They don't need to play 3-drop goblins. Just 1 and 2 mana goblins. Get in for chip damage. Finish the game off with bolts and grenades. That's all it takes, man. Like once they have you at 12, they can kill you. It's like Goblin Grenade is such a brutal Magic card, dude. And it's still really good to this day. And I would wager, too, that at like, you know, anywhere between 64. The Spencer print is the most expensive one. So, you see, I'm on to something here. But at 40 to 65 cents, I would wager that this is one of the more expensive cards from Fallen Empires. Weirdly. But yeah, this is an absolutely just hedonistically, just completely, you know, again, brutal. I can't think of any better word. Savage Magic card, dude. A single red mana is a mistake for a spell like this. So I've talked about it long enough. And I don't even have to give it the honorary 5. I'm going to give Goblin Grenade a 7.6. And I mean every decimal of that score, dude. If you've never experienced Goblin Grenade, if you don't know what it's like to get attacked down with a couple of like 1/1 goblins for a few turns and then just like randomly lose on turn 3 to triple grenade, like I don't want to talk to you. This card is absolutely stupid. It's beyond busted. Next is Moldervine Cloak from City of Guilds. 3 mana, 2 and a green for an aura that enchants a creature. The creature gets +3/+3. And Moldervine Cloak also has Dredge too. We talked about Dredge not long ago here on the series. This is one of the cheaper Dredge cost, which is actually, it kind of works against it, right? Like a lot of the Dredge cards were good because you know, Golgari Grave Troll is like banned in Modern or whatever. Because it's Dredge 6, and that's like the whole point of the card is that it allows you to mill yourself 6 cards. Milling yourself 2 is not great for the purpose of mill decks, so you mostly want to play this honestly as a, you know, a cousin of Rancor, right? Like a an aura that enchants the creature and makes its power much larger and can come back from your yard. I will say, in the late game in green, especially in limited, you'd much rather draw this than draw like a forest most of the time. So it may be worth replacing your draw step to get cloak back. But again, I think that's mostly in limited decks and stuff. I could see certain, Enchantress decks and Commander Sithis decks and stuff maybe wanting this. Because again, replacing your draw step with a guaranteed enchantment on most turns seems like something I'd be into. You know what I mean? So I don't hate the card. I'm going to give it a 3.9. I'll give it a 4. I'll blow it up to 4. Again, Dredge is anytime you can negate the problem of being an aura by, coming back from the graveyard, I think that's pretty decent. And again, in this case, Enchantress decks probably like something like this. So I don't hate it. Rancor's obviously the better card, but next is Eiganjo, Seat of the Empire. Whew, this is a good card. This is down to like $4. Which I think is a fantastic price. To be honest, I think it's more than worth it right now. Do I have an Eiganjo? Let me get up here. Buy Eiganjo. I just bought this pen. Why doesn't it work? Piece of garbage. Dollar store pen. Anyway, this Eiganjo, you're $1.25 now. You should work. Eiganjo, Seat of the Empire is a legendary land. Tap it for a white mana, but also channel for 2 and a white and discard it. It deals 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Here's a secret. With a lot of these from Kamigawa, even if you don't have any legendary guys out, it's still unbelievable Magic card. It basically replaces a basic land, and we can go back and forth on whether or not it's better than a basic, right? But it produces, in this case, a white mana, a non-colorless mana, and comes into play untapped. So for all intents and purposes, this can replace a basic land as a one of in just about any deck. And it may not be fetchable or anything, but who cares? It also just doubles as a spell, and in this case, and in the case of pretty much every land from Kamigawa, it doubles as a very castable spell. Like, you'd never put this spell in your deck if it were just this. 3 mana to do this, that'd be terrible. You wouldn't do that. But on a land, it'd be a whole different ball game. When your spells are part of your mana base, when your mana is part of your spell base, it's just unbelievable. Every single one of these is just out of the park. Crazy. I'm going to rate this very high, so I'm kind of setting you up for that. I think Eiganjo, Seat of the Empire is like an 8.3. I'm so serious, guys. I'm gonna rate all these Kamigawa lands like in a similar vein, and actually 2 of them I can think of off the top of my head, maybe even 3 are going to rate higher than this. But 8.3 is about as low as I can go on Eiganjo, dude. A removal spell that's a land, untapped land at that. Jeez Louise, dude. It's one of the best white lands ever printed. Actually and truly. It really is. But Sea Eagle's up next. Not quite as impressive. From Starter 99. It's a starter card. It's good. 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 flying bird. That's it. Not even as good as Stormcrow, everyone. So how good could that be? I will say, okay, Starter 99 art by Anthony S. Waters. Looks good. Again, this kind of comic book sort of feel with the oversized proportions on the talons, right? Like, even with this camera angle, there's no way the talons would be like this ridiculously oversized. Although maybe a Sea Eagle's talons are just ridiculously huge. But again, comic book sort of proportions here with a interesting sort of technique on the wings here. But you move to 8th edition, and they have oversaturated the art to this ridiculous degree. And I got to say, I actually really like it. They have turned up the contrast a great deal as well. And I don't know if the original artist likes it, Waters over here, but I like the seafoam green here. I like how much more discernible the whale shape is. I like the sort of how you can tell where the terminal line is and the inking on the line work a little bit easier. I don't know. I like a good number of things about the 8th edition art, even though it's technically the same art. Just the palette's a little more washed out in Starter, but when I don't have a lot to say about a card, I usually resort to the art, but only if I like the art. And I do like the art. I'll give Sea Eagle a 1.2. It ain't good. Bloodthirsty Aerialist is a pretty good card, though. This is originally from Core Set 2020. 3 mana, 1 and 2 black for a 2/3 vampire rogue with flying. Whenever you gain life, this thing gets a +1/+1 counter. So a flying Ajani's Pridemate, or there's like 1,000 Ajani's Pridemates at this point. They keep printing more and more. There's like 4 of them just in Foundations. But this is actually one of my favorite Primates of all time. Had a lot of fun with this in Standard, but I've also had fun with this in Cube. It's in Mono Black Cube. That one I've already put out. And it's actually one of the more important cards in Mono Black Cube because it, helps actually enable the life gain theme. But this is also, I've tried it off and on in LSL Core in Commander as well, and it does work there. So kind of a huge fan. I've played this card. I resolved this card in like 4 different contexts throughout like 4 different formats throughout Magic. Just a really cool Magic card, dude. I think it's sort of perfectly designed in terms of the rate you're paying for what it actually does, extra point of toughness, so it still dies to cut down and lightning bolt and stuff, but it doesn't die to shock effects and whatnot. There's just a lot of cool stuff about this. There really is. Even if they go to bolt it or cut it down, you can gain life at instant speed and kind of like fizzle their spell. That's good too. So they got to watch out for that. Just Aerialist is such a cool card, man. Honorary 5. I fear that I'd have to give it like a 4.8 or something like that, and I don't want to do it. So honorary 5 goes to Aerialist today. This is, the more I look at it, the more I'm realizing like, oh my God, I love you. You know what I mean? let's show it some love. But next is Living Totem from Magic 15. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 2/3 plant elemental with Convoke. When Living Totem enters the battlefield, you may put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature. It's a free creature. No, it isn't. You have to tap guys down. 3.1. Like sometimes it's pseudo free, right? So sure. Blightspeaker is from Planar Chaos. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 1/1 human rebel cleric. Love that it's a rebel. You can tap it and the player loses a life. All right. Or you can pay 4 and tap it to search your library for a rebel card with converted mana cost 3 or less. Put it into play, shuffle up. In case you're not initiated, you haven't seen rebels before, all rebels have an ability like this, right? So do a lot of mercenaries from back in the day, from Mercadian Mass. Mercenaries would have similar abilities, but if I'm not mistaken, mercenaries, it's one or the other. Mercenaries always search for something like higher than their mana cost. No, it's lower. Mercenaries, I think, search for something lower than their mana cost. Rebels tend to search for something higher than their mana cost. This is a rebel, and it searches for something higher than its mana cost, but the search ability itself costs a lot. That said, rebels are cool. They put the card directly into play, which is very, very awesome. I love that. And it works well in like Changelings decks and Commander too. So there's some interesting things about Blightspeaker. It pops up every now and again. It has work to do. And obviously, 2 mana for this tap ability. I think some people will just be into that. You know what I mean? If it's got nothing else to do, at least it does that. But I like Blightspeaker. 4.79, and I mean it. The ability to search your library in Commander is just really good. It is pretty decent. But next is Bosk again. We saw Bosk the other day, but this is different John Avon art that I don't like quite as much as the last Bosk art that we saw, but I'm still going to give it like a 7. I think it's pretty solid. I like this style that Avon was toying with for forests in this particular set. I like a good bit. But Plains is next. That also gets an honorary 5. This one is from Fallout. It's kind of reminiscent of the part of Final Fantasy VII where you have to go up through the like abandoned train yard to get back to Sector 7, right? So that's kind of fun. But overall, it doesn't look really. I get how it's a Plains. But I still have to call them out slightly. It's not quite a Plains. I mean, it could be if it's large enough. It could be, but it just doesn't look. I don't know, man. I'm gonna give this art like a 5. But good, Constantine Marin. All you did was follow the notes they gave you to create the art. So I'm not yelling at you. I'm more yelling at the art director that was like, hey, make this art because it's Fallout. But anyway, next is Knight's Whisper. 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery. You draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. What was this originally printed in? I can't even really take a guess. Magic 2010. Fifth Dawn? Really? It's that far? Oh yeah, I remember this art. Never mind. I do remember this art. This is really good. I feel like this was amazing back in the day, and it's still better than Sign in Blood. And Sign in Blood is a card that I would give like a 5 to. So I think Knight's Whisper is still like a very playable Magic card. And the price would reflect that too. Like there's no Knight's Whisper costs less than $1. Still really playable. It's just like an automatic one of in a lot of Commander decks. Knight's Whisper is like a 5.6, dude. It's higher than that. Knight's Whisper is like a 6.4. I'm so serious, dude. 2 mana for 2 cards is just very good. It really is. And when it's like this easily castable, I'm serious. 6.4. It's like one of the best black card draw spells of all time. Hands down. So, yeah. I think 6.4 might actually be low. Ask the audience too. It's kind of tainted it because you already know my score, and I don't like that. But I am going to use my Ask the Audience on Whisper in this video because I'm really interested in what you guys think on a card that's sort of this like simple, but also this really good on rate for a black card, especially because usually, it would cost you this rate. It would cost you like 3 mana to do this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I want to know how you guys feel, but I'm going at least 6.5. And like the more I look at the card, the more I'm like tempted to go higher. So I'll stop now. Hibernation is next. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue to return all green permanents to their owner's hand at instant speed. This is in World Championship decks because back in the day when you could play a color hoser like this, you just did. You know what I mean? If you want the foil from 7th, it's $40. Don't do that. You want the one from Urza's Saga that still looks pretty good. Scott Kirshner art here, $1.14. Not a bad price. There's a lot of green in Commander, and if you are in the right pod, this card's obviously like gonna make a lot of people angry. I was gonna say in the game, but it won't. It won't. They'll cling to life and keep trying to play their cards, but it'll more or less be over. It's too much tempo. A Cyclonic Rift that doesn't hit you is pretty good, but altogether, I'm going to give Hibernation like a 5.3. I don't often give color hosers that high of a score, but I'm giving Hibernation that high of a score specifically because, again, on rate, just 3 mana, this can be just completely demoralizing, like, again, more or less in the game by itself. Not all hosers are created equal. Some of them can be played through or played against, but this one really is, it truly is a game winner. So I have to give it slightly higher than maybe it looks like it deserves. But that is all the cards for Tuesday, everybody. I'll see you bright and early on Wednesday. We'll be there. Love you guys. Bye.